Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this session for this morning. This morning we're going to hear from Mick Stephens, the Regional Director of FireMon, and his presentation is the effective management of information security. So just some housekeeping. Please turn off your mobile phones or turn them to silent. Also, if you have any questions, they can be submitted via the app, or you can just raise your hand and I'll bring a handheld microphone out to you. So either of those two options. So please welcome Mick Stephens.
Thanks, Michael. And a good morning to everyone. Big night last night? Someone did. Okay, so effective security management. To start with, yes, I'm Mick Stephens. I'm the Regional Director for FireMon, looking after Australia and New Zealand. We've got a stand around the corner. You're all welcome to pop across and have a look at our demonstration. This is an extension, I suppose, of the presentation my fine colleague Eric did yesterday around our immediate insight solution. Okay, where do we start? Data breaches. I think if you pick up any newspaper, IT rag, you'll see the latest and greatest data breach or the occurrence. Organisations that have been breached, their data exfiltrated, pilloried in the media, rightfully or wrongfully. I'm sure most of you, the organisations you work for, it's a major concern, it's happened, or it's happened and you don't know about it. There's really only two sorts of clients out there, or two sorts of organisations, those that have been breached and those that haven't. I suppose there's a third sort, and that would be those that haven't been breached, and that's typically a reflection of the business's value. No one wants to breach it because the business isn't worth anything. Typically, a breach occurrence lasts for over 200 days before it's actually found. 200 days that a hacker's inside your network, exfiltrating card data, sensitive information, IP, state secret, whatever the requirement of the actor is, be it a hacktivist group, be it corporate espionage or state-sponsored espionage. Our co-founder, Jody Brazel, suggests that security breaches are not the result of technology problems, but they're the result of a management failure. And I suppose to evidence this point, we can look at this slide and understand there's no real lack of technology out there. The technologies resident in our ecosystem, in our IT environment, to address these breach issues, these data exfiltration issues. So what's the issue? Is it cash? There always could be more. I'm sure all of you have your budgets and ask for more and more. More often than not, it's BAU, less 10, 15%. That's your budget for the year. But the reality is the spend on IT is going up, or IT security in particular. $170 billion by 2020, a reasonable number. So the technology's there. The desire from management as it relates to revenue or as it relates to expenditure appears to be there. So what's not? And I'd submit to you that it's the human element that is the issue. This is great news for appropriately skilled and qualified systems engineers with an IT security bent, for the simple fact that there's not enough of them. When there's supply and demand, your price goes up in the marketplace. That's probably why that budget had to go up to $170 billion. But if we look at some of these statistics, in particular the third one-third, this is from a 451 research paper, 1/3 cite lack of staff expertise, or numbers of staff in particular, as an obstacle in executing desired security programs. The technology might be resident within an organisation, but we just simply don't have the manpower to effectively implement. I think that would probably strike a chord with a lot of people in this room. Yes, no, wait, maybe. Yeah, getting a lot of nods on that one. So really it's a case where it's not the circumvention typically of advanced security tools or complex security processes that leads to data breach and potentially exfiltration issues. It's the more common than not, and this is from Gartner, the failure of fairly well-established systems, in particular firewalls, which are just simply becoming too complex to effectively manage, and effectively manage using your traditional manual techniques. So what does this lead to? This lack of management. It leads to dramatically increased operational costs in managing the rules and configurations. The rules are being added, they're not being deleted. Poor firewall administrators under huge duress from business units within the organisation, revenue generating business units or whatever the case may be it marketing, new programs, new solutions and services to gain more revenue or provide new services to a company or to an organisation's clients. Firewall administrators under great pressure typically add rules, they don't delete them. And as a result of that, we get ever increasing complexity within the firewall rule set. And it's this complexity that then leads to compounding issues of inefficiencies when we're trying to provide new access, because I simply don't know where a rule's supposed to go. I've got my spreadsheet, someone's handed me some pieces of paper, where's this rule go? I'll tell you what, I'm getting barked at to get this rule done, or this access done. I'm going to do something akin to any except. There you go, there's your access. Access to who? Access to what? Access to everything for everyone. Overly permissive access, and this is an outcome of complexity. Further, when under pressure, errors are made. Putting a rule in, opening an entire subnet as opposed to an individual host. These sort of things. And this is all related to management and visibility overheads and issues. And this is a resourcing issue. So what do we need to do? We need to obviously effectively address the complexity inherent in the firewall rule set ecosystem. Typically we're engaged when someone's migrating firewalls or renewing firewall support, so they're considering what they're going to do with their firewalls. And we get engaged from two perspectives, as part of a proof of value or potentially as a consultancy piece to look at a firewall rule set and do a firewall rule assessment. On average, we see between 30 to 50% of the rule set simply being rubbish, technical errors, redundant, overshadowed. And this is without even looking at rule utilisation. Rules that aren't overshadowed but are never used. Services have been disconnected, objects removed, but the rules are still there. Rule utilisation. Visibility into the overall network security infrastructures are key. Reachability. How do I get from this point to this point? What are the NATs? What are the routes? What are the rules that are being used to access that or trace that path? And then one considers the ever-increasing complexity of the world that we live in when we look at things such as cloud. It's got great benefits, but being able to address security in the cloud from an access perspective, things like SDN, Cisco, ACI, and 2 additional fields in next generation firewalls. 2 additional fields when you take the mathematics from a standard 3-field firewall, source, destination, etc., adds vast amounts of complexity into the ecosystem as well. Again, rules added, very rarely deleted. This is the pay the piper slides, and then once I get through this component, I'll step into a couple of case studies. So this is what FireMon does: real-time intelligence, continuous monitoring, assessing and really protecting assets as they relate to access and firewalls, so improving protection, optimising performance, and we deliver that through our platform. In the base sense, we have Security Manager, which is device and policy management with various licenses which assist in automation. And on the right, immediate insight, the real-time data analytics solution, which Eric presented on yesterday. So, what do we do? What's our value? Why do I talk about complexity and data breach and exfiltration and all this sort of stuff? In the most basic form, what we do is we show change over time. What your configurations look like a month ago as they look like today, show me everything that was added, moved, deleted, which helps you triage issues. Something happened over the course of the weekend. This is my rule set on Friday, this is my rule set on Monday, show me what changed. Basic stuff. Then addressing that whole concept of firewall hygiene. This is the most easy and effective thing that you guys can do. This is basic stuff. Looking at the configurations or the rule sets, we're basically vendor agnostic when it comes to the firewalls, and doing a rule review. Printing out a report that shows Rule 22 overshadows Rule 222 and 2022. Something that never can be done manually, but I can assure you if your firewalls have been there for a time, there's going to be a vast amount of that rule set which is rubbish, which is adding to the complexity that your firewall administrators have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. What we want to do is reduce that and free up their hands to focus on more valued tasks, security strategy, whatever the case may be. So adding hygiene back into that firewall rule set. Looking at rule utilisation from the perspective of, is a rule being used over a period of time? If it's not, let's potentially delete it, potentially look at it in a bit more detail. If something hasn't been used for a year, then I think you can safely say we can delete it. But it gives you the tools to make more intelligent decisions on whether those rules should stay or not. So cleaning up rule sets, utilising or rule utilisation. And then I think very importantly, looking at open rules, overly permissive access, and these are the ones that are really of concern and really dovetail into that concept of data breach, I suppose. I understand there's a lot more to it than a firewall rule set, but being able to define, say, an any except rule or iterations of that, and then applying a deep log capture or inspection, which allows you to look at the individual flows running through an overly permissive rule. There might be a group of logical flows, 10, 15, 20, 1,000. We can bring those together into groups of logical flows through an individual rule, which then can be busted out above that rule, adding granularity back into the rule base and greatly reducing permissiveness. So cleaning up, utilisation, reduction in permissiveness. And then compliancy, which I think is a really interesting point. Regulatory compliance in one sense, you know, things such as PCI, HIPAA in the States, might be MAS up in Hong Kong, or Hong Kong monetary regulations amongst other things, and the various ones that we have in Australia, some aspects of the ISM amongst other things, ISO 27001. So regulatory compliance and being able to automate those reports. And I think PCI is one of the key ones that we really address quite well, being able to effectively, in a continuously monitoring perspective, show you where you are at any stage with your PCI compliance as it relates to access, and generate PCI compliancy reports, which can then be provided to auditors. And then the internal compliancy standards, such as, I don't know, this test dev network shall never talk to my production network. Show me every rule that contravenes that. I've got a corporate edict saying no telnet on my network. Show me everything that contravenes that. So being able to create compliancy reports. And then to keep all that good stuff, the cleanliness of your newly cleaned, hygienically vacuumed rule set with reduced permissive rules because you've had granularity back into it and you're now compliant, and to maintain all that, automating the firewall administration function through a intelligent rule recommendation tool, understanding all your rules as they are, natting, routing, etc., and giving you a rule recommendation. It's essentially an intelligent ticketing system, in the sense that access is requested, we collect all the metadata which is typically not collected, things like requesting business units, rule expiry dates, it's just a little one, amongst every other metric that you want or piece of metadata that you need to collect. Then going through a rule recommendation and planning stage. Add this rule here, modify this rule here, this firewall no change. But before you do that, check that against the compliancy standards that we've baked into the tool, PCI, internal, whatever the case may be. If that is all green lights a go, apply the rule through your standard CAB process or whatever you have internally. And then, once the rule's applied, immediately verify that that rule is indeed the one that was approved. So no fat fingers, be it, fat fingers or malicious or otherwise. So keeping a closed loop to maintain all that good stuff. Some of the vendors we support. So I wanted to just go through a couple of quick reviews. This one's an interesting one, I quite like this. It's around a medium-sized regional bank. Being outside the city, they had real issues with staff, more so than we do obviously in the key financial services markets. They had a number of issues, but one in particular was security was seen as a major obstacle to this particular organisation's business agility. Being a medium and small bank competing against very large banks, the super banks plus the internationals, they really had to differentiate their service and do stuff faster to keep their client base happy and try to attract new customers from these financial services giants. And security, to a large extent, was seen as a blocker to that, blocker to the business agility that they required. You can read some of the other stuff here, a lot of what I've already spoken about. Firewall policies, they added, they never deleted, they became complex, too difficult to manage, they didn't have many people to do it. When they did have people, they had to get a lot of grads, which didn't understand the prevailing compliancy standards of that business, so trying to teach them and get them up to skill took a vast amount of time. They were also cut and pasted into insourced, outsourced, and moving down the path of cloud. So I'm sure this is fairly common to a lot of organisations in the crowd today. In applying our sort of logic of hygiene and compliancy and automation of the firewall administration function, they were able to do some pretty cool stuff. Because of the reduction in complexity and because of our verification of rules as they're being applied to those that are approved, they got into a situation where the right rule was going in the first time, not the second, the third, the fourth time. Hence decreasing the time it took to deliver new services to the market. So increasing speed and accuracy in the deployment of services that the business deemed to be crucial to their business success. So this is their number, but through the automation, the rule recommendation piece, they figured around 75% reduction in time from request for access to application of a rule. This equates to weeks, not hours or days. So I think that's one of their key things. The operational efficiencies that we were able to provide through automation had huge benefits to these guys. In addition, that lack of staff and having to get fairly junior staff and build them up, graduates as the case was, having compliancy built into a tool as opposed to teaching someone what the compliancy standards are made it a lot easier for those new staff to be effective quicker. I think that makes sense, yeah? I hope. All right, on the other end of the scale, massive bank, Dutch, this one actually, not one of my sales, but any which way, it's a good thing. Large international bank, one of their major issues was around PCI compliance, adherence to PCI compliance. Obviously, there's a fiscal sting in the tail when it comes to PCI. So money's being spent on this by these organisations. They had 15 full-time staff addressing the requirements of PCI compliance and the ongoing requirements for PCI compliance as they change the iteration every year, 2.0 to 3.0, whatever the case may be. Deploying us, but really leveraging our compliancy module, our PCI compliancy component, which is all part of the base security manager license. It does all the hygiene and optimization and reduced permissiveness amongst other things. By applying that, they were able to reduce the number of assigned staff, and considering these guys are at about $120,000 to $160,000 a head, 15 FTEs were reduced down to 4. So that's 11 headcount which were assigned to other tasks within the bank and some case outside the organisation. So any which way, that's a vast operational saving, not to mention the benefits of actually maintaining PCI compliance in an effective manner and being able to at any time understand where we are in relation to PCI compliance, not that quarterly, half-year review depending on what level you are, what tier. And on that, I'm going to wrap it up. Open up to any questions, if there's anything there. Did that all make sense? You all happy with that? Good. Who's going to the gala tonight? There's one. Okay, that's going to be a good night. FireMon's your sponsor for the gala as well, just so you know. Thank you very much. Third year running. Anything? Anyone? Bueller?
Just a quick one. You mentioned that there's a full control of compliance activities running for these guys.
Yeah.
So is there any roadmap or any plan you're targeting for, because in Australia we have got one framework such as ISM, which we need to do that for?
Yeah, great question. Brilliant question. So the ISM, as it relates to access to what we do, which is really around the firewall access, there's probably only 10 to 15% of that relates to us. I mean, a lot of ISMs around policy and, having the right governance structures and everything else in it. So we've taken that and we're in the process, you actually might have finished it, I'll double check, but in the process of generating a compliancy report specifically to the small amount of components that relates to firewall rules. Yeah, so that's definitely something that we're doing. Anyone?
Are we able to take multiple compliance standards and combine them?
Yes. Yeah, so we've got a really flexible controls, so you can build multiple controls We've got vast control library. So PCI, as an example, is just made up of a whole selection of different controls. You can run them as individual reports, or if you want, you can generate your own report. So you might have PCI compliance, or you might have ISO 27001, and you might want to add some other aspects that are specific to your business. And yeah, we very much allow that. It's just a case of defining what you want. Does this work with and vendor firewall? Yeah. Okay. Predominantly any of the top tier firewalls. So we support from the top Fortinet, because they're sponsors of this fine event. The ones that aren't sponsoring this event that we also support. Checkpoint, Cisco, Palo Alto, Sonic, Wall, Intel, Huawei, pretty much any. We also have the ability, because we have it's called device packs, so particularly in Asia, where they've got some very regional specific firewalls, we can create device packs for them and bring them on very easily, but all the major firewalls are supported 100%. We have to, because one of the key benefits, which I didn't really touch on here, is our ability to normalise different firewall vendors. So we'll take a Checkpoint, a Palo or a Fortinet and normalise it into a standard view, a normalised view. So it helps with operational efficiencies, and it's also off that normalised view that we build all our reports from. So most organisations are multi-vendor, so yeah, you need to be multi-vendor, Helen, wherever you are. Okay, anything else? If you're interested in this solution, if it sort of resonates with you, the most easy thing you can do is go to the FireMon website, where you come as a piece of software. We also ship as appliances if need be, but running on VMs. Go to the FireMon website. If there's some firewalls that are of particular concern in terms of hygiene, or the rule set's bloated, or whatever the case may be, you can download the evaluation copy. It's fully featured. It's only 30-day limited, but we can extend that if need be. Run up a VM, put it on there. You can do offline config import. You don't get utilization, but that's going to give you the overview of all your hidden rules, redundant rules, etc. very, very quickly, very efficiently, and very easily. So that's a free service for you guys. So feel free to use that. And no more bets. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
So once again, can we thank Mick Stephens from FireMon?